I always thought Thanksgiving was supposed to feel warm. You know, the smell of roasted turkey laughter bouncing off the walls, that fleeting illusion of family unity. But that evening, as I sat at the long oak table in my mother's new suburban home, all I felt was the weight of silence pressing down on me like a heavy coat I couldn't take off. Carolyn. My mother sat at the head of the table, her posture stiff and polished, like she was posing for some invisible camera. Across from me, Rick, her husband of 2 years, swirled his wine glass with the smug satisfaction of a man who'd never really worked for anything in his life. And then there was Lily, my younger sister, barely looking up from her phone, as her acrylic nails tapped furiously at her screen, probably updating her followers about her cozy family holiday. The table was perfect. Candles flickered in crystal holders. Steam rose off a turkey that they had spent hours brining and roasting. The mashed potatoes were smooth, the cranberry sauce handmade. I had done it all, just like I'd done the grocery shopping, just like I'd paid half the mortgage last month, because Rick's consulting gig had mysteriously fallen through again, just like I'd kept the lights on when the bills stacked up. I'd been back in this house for almost 2 years. After Dad passed, Mum called me late one night, her voice cracking as she said she couldn't manage alone. I'd put my own life on hold, my career, my plans to move to Seattle, everything to come home and help. At first it felt like the right thing to do, family right. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being a son and became something else. A wallet, a maid, a shadow. They only noticed when they needed something. And then it happened. Carolyn set down her wine glass with a soft clink and picked delicately at her slice of turkey. She didn't look at me when she spoke. "Ethan," she said lightly, almost as if she were asking me to pass the salt. "I think it's time you found your own place. You're nearly 30. Don't you think it's time you started your own life?" My fork paused mid-air. For a moment, I wasn't sure I heard her right. "Excuse me?" My voice came out calm, but my stomach tightened like a fist. Rick didn't even glance up, just smirked into his glass. Lily's thumbs didn't stop tapping on her phone. No one seemed surprised. Carolyn finally met my eyes. And what I saw there wasn't regret or love. It was mild irritation, like I was an overdue guest. "It's just, this house doesn't feel like ours anymore with you here all the time. We need our space." She dabbed her lips with her napkin as if she'd just said something reasonable. I swallowed hard. My pulse pounded in my ears, but I kept my voice steady. "I pay the mortgage, the utilities. I buy the groceries you're eating right now." She sighed, exasperated. "It's not about money, Ethan. It's about boundaries. You can't stay stuck here forever." Stuck. The word tasted bitter on my tongue. "You called me. You said you couldn't handle things alone after Dad died. I put my life on hold for you." She waved a hand dismissively. "That was then. Things are different now." Different. I glanced around the table at Rick, who was now cutting another thick slice of turkey at Lily, who was still glued to her phone, oblivious to the storm brewing inches away. And it hit me. I wasn't family, not really. I was a convenience. The room felt suddenly smaller. The candlelight didn't seem warm anymore. It felt harsh, exposing every crack in the facade we'd been pretending was a family. I wanted to scream, to throw the plate, to demand they admit how much they relied on me. But instead, I set my fork down slowly, deliberately. "I see," I said. My voice didn't even shake. "You're right. I shouldn't stay stuck." And just like that, I went back to eating. Silent. Calm. But inside, something shifted, like a door quietly closing. They didn't know it yet, but that was the last Thanksgiving I'd ever spend in that house. What they also didn't know was that I'd already been making plans. Quietly, carefully. And this time when I left, I wasn't coming back. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the small guest room that used to be mine, staring at the faint glow of the hallway light bleeding through the crack under the door. I could hear the muted sounds of Rick's laughter echoing from the living room, some late-night sitcom rerun blaring too loud. Lily's voice drifted faintly through the vents, laughing on FaceTime with her friends. Not a single knock on my door. Not a single word after the dinner conversation. It was like nothing had happened. And in that quiet, I realized just how invisible I'd become. Around 4 a.m., I got up. The house was still. I moved through it like a ghost, careful not to wake anyone. I folded my clothes neatly packed, only the essentials. My laptop, the few books I loved, the framed photo of Dad and me from the summer I graduated college, his arm slung over my shoulders, pride in his smile. That one I wrapped gently, almost reverently. Everything else I left. On the kitchen counter, I left my house key. Next to it, a simple note on a torn piece of notebook paper. You wanted space. Now you have it. No goodbye, no explanation. They didn't deserve either. By sunrise, I was gone. I drove my beat-up Honda Civic into the city, the November air sharp against my skin. When I finally stepped out in front of a small red brick building on the edge of Chicago's West Loop, my studio apartment was waiting bare walls, second-hand furniture I'd quietly moved in weeks ago, just in case. Deep down, I must have known this day would come. The place smelled faintly of fresh paint and new beginnings. It was small, just one open room with a tiny kitchenette, but it was mine. No passive-aggressive sighs, no footsteps echoing in judgment, just silence. I stood in the middle of the room, bag still in hand, and let myself breathe for the first time in what felt like years. The first thing I did after setting my stuff down was pull out my laptop. I logged into the utility portals one by one, electricity, gas, internet, even the streaming services. My name was on all of them. I'd been the one quietly paying setting up autopay, so they'd never have to worry. Now, with a few clicks, I severed every tie. Effective immediately, the house went dark. I removed my card from the grocery delivery apps Mum relied on, cancelled the renter's insurance I'd secretly kept active so Lily wouldn't ruin her credit if she damaged something. I even called the bank to cancel the mortgage autopay that had been silently draining my account every month. It wasn't revenge, it was balance. If I wasn't welcome there, neither was my support. When the last tab closed, I sat back in the creaky old chair by the window. Outside, the city was just waking up early commuters, rushing past the faint honk of a distant cab, the hum of life moving forward. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone to call my name. I wasn't bracing for a sigh, a favor, another casual demand. I was free. Later that afternoon, as I unpacked a few dishes in the tiny kitchen, my phone buzzed. A text from Lily Ethan. Did you forget to pay the Wi-Fi? It's not working. Mum's mad. Can you fix it? I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I set the phone down without replying. An hour later, another text. This time from Carolyn. I tried to pay the electric bill, but it says the account is closed. Can you call them? Also, did you cancel the rent? Autopay Rick's card got declined. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then with a calm that surprised even me, I typed one simple message. I moved out like you asked. The bills are yours now. Good luck. And then silence. I poured myself a glass of water, sat on the floor by the window and watched the sun sink low over the skyline. No guilt, no second guessing. Just the quiet hum of my own life finally beginning. What they didn't know, what they would never see coming, was that I wasn't just walking away. I was building something better. It didn't take long for the silence to crack. By the second day, my phone lit up with 3 missed calls from Lily. I ignored them. Then came the barrage of texts. Ethan, the Wi-Fi's still out. I can't stream my sponsored live tonight. Do you even realize how important this is? Mum says the thermostat isn't working. It's freezing in here. Can you please call someone? This isn't funny. I didn't respond. On day 3, Carolyn finally broke her polished composure. Her first voicemail was clipped annoyed. Ethan, the electricity is off. I tried calling the company, but they said you're the account holder. Could you at least leave it active until we figure something out? Her second voicemail a few hours later was softer. I don't know what's going on, but Rick is trying to reset the fuse box, and it's still not working. It's 29 degrees outside. The heat won't come on. Please call me back. Still, I didn't respond. And then around midnight, I got a text from Rick, of all people. The same man who had sat there smugly while my mother dismissed me. Look, your mum is upset. She didn't mean it the way it sounded. Maybe you could help. Just for a little while until we get back on our feet. Back on their feet, I almost laughed. They'd been standing on my feet this whole time. Meanwhile, I was settling into my new life. My tiny studio was no luxury condo. But it was warm, the bills were paid, and for the first time in years, the money I earned went only to me. I cooked simple meals, eggs, pasta, the occasional takeout, and ate in peace. No sighs, no sarcastic remarks about how I overcooked the turkey. Just quiet. Back in the suburbs, the cracks were starting to show. Lily posted a shaky Instagram story on day 4, a dimly lit dining table with mismatched takeout containers. The caption read, "Literally the worst week. No Wi-Fi, no heat, no clue." Her followers, thousands of them, commented things like, "Girl, just call your brother," and "What happened to that perfect house?" She didn't reply. Day 5 was when it really hit them. Without the heat, Carolyn was bundled in 2 robes and a blanket on the couch. Rick had apparently shocked himself trying to fix the fuse box, and now an electrician wanted an upfront payment they didn't have. Lily's precious live streams kept cutting out because she was tethering her phone to dwindling data. Another text from Carolyn arrived that evening. This one was different. "Ethan, I know you're upset. I shouldn't have said what I did at Thanksgiving. I just felt crowded. I was tired. I didn't think it through. Please, can we talk? I'll make it right." I stared at that message for a long moment, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity, because I realized something she wasn't missing me. She was missing what I did for her, the warmth I provided, the invisible scaffolding of support she never acknowledged, the easy life I made possible. And now without me, the house wasn't a home anymore. It was just a hollow box where the heat didn't work. The lights flickered out, and the Instagram-perfect facade was falling apart for the world to see. I didn't reply. By day 7, Rick called again. I let it ring. Then another text. "Your mum thinks you hate her. Maybe just help us with a few bills and we'll figure the rest out." Don't punish her like this. Punish her. I shook my head, almost smiling. No, this wasn't punishment. This was truth. The truth that comfort isn't free. That taking someone for granted comes with a cost. That if you push away the person holding everything together, eventually everything falls apart. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one scrambling to hold the pieces. I was watching calmly from the outside. While their world grew colder, mine was warming up in ways I hadn't expected. 2 weeks after I moved into my studio, I got an email from my old manager at the tech firm I'd left behind when I came home. "Ethan, we've been expanding. We'd love to have you back. There's a new project we think you'd be perfect for." At first I hesitated. Walking away from my family felt like I was betraying some unspoken duty. But then I remembered Thanksgiving. The look in Carolyn's eyes when she told me to leave as if I were an inconvenience to be tidied up. Not her son, who had put his own life on hold for hers. So I said yes. The next Monday, I took the train downtown to their sleek new office. Stepping into that space felt like stepping into another version of myself, the one I used to be before I let obligations swallow my dreams. I was welcomed back like I'd never left. Within weeks, I wasn't just catching up, I was excelling. They put me on a development team that was working on something big. A startup acquisition deal that promised not just a promotion, but a stake in the company's future. In the evenings, I'd come back to my tiny studio, cook dinner in silence, and feel proud. Every dollar I saved was mine. Every decision was mine. No one hovering over me, no one draining me. Meanwhile, the texts from my family had slowed but hadn't stopped. Lily predictably tried to mask her panic with sarcasm. Wow, hope you're happy. My brand deals are tanking because I can't even go live from this icebox of a house. Thanks, bro. Rick tried guilt. You know your mum's not good with this stuff. She's stressed. Don't you care about her mental health? And Carolyn? She tried silence for a while, as if waiting for me to feel guilty enough to cave. When that didn't work, her messages shifted from annoyed to almost pitiful. Ethan. I don't know what to do. Rick's talking about selling the house. Lily's miserable. I didn't mean for it to come to this. But I didn't reply, because by then I'd realized something crucial. I wasn't responsible for the comfort of people who treated me like I didn't belong. The more distance I put between myself and that house, the clearer it became. I started seeing them for who they really were, not family in the truest sense, but people who benefited from my presence without valuing me. I remembered little things like the time Carolyn used my savings to help with groceries, but bought herself a designer coat, or the way Rick would joke that at least you're useful whenever I fixed something in the house, or how Lily never once said thank you for the Wi-Fi that powered her entire online persona. And every memory made me feel lighter for having left. But my absence wasn't just about walking away. Quietly, I was building something. That startup project. It was growing faster than anyone expected. There were whispers about an early buyout from a major investor. If it happened, my share could triple overnight. For the first time, I saw a future where I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving on my terms. And yet a small part of me still wondered. If they could see me now, if they knew I was finally free, finally successful, would they care? Would they understand what they threw away? I didn't have to wonder for long. One Thursday evening, as I was finishing a late-night call with my team, my phone buzzed again. A new message from Carolyn. Ethan, we're selling the house. Rick can't keep up with the mortgage. Lily wants to move in with a friend. I know I don't deserve your help after what I said, but would you come for dinner? Just once, I think we need to talk. For a moment, I stared at the screen, feeling an odd mix of emotions. There was a time when I would have dropped everything at the hint of vulnerability in her voice. But now I wasn't the same Ethan she dismissed at that Thanksgiving table, because the Ethan she wanted back no longer existed, and she was about to find that out. I decided to go, not because I wanted reconciliation, not because I owed them anything, but because I wanted to see, just once, the look on their faces when they realized I wasn't theirs to dismiss anymore. It was a Saturday evening, unseasonably warm for February. I drove to the house I hadn't seen in months. The neighborhood looked the same, tidy lawns, cars parked in the exact same spots. But when I pulled into the driveway, the house itself felt smaller, dull, like it had aged without me. I knocked on the door and waited. For a moment, I almost expected Dad to answer. But it was Carolyn. She looked thinner somehow. Her once perfectly styled hair pulled into a loose bun, her face tired in a way she couldn't hide. She blinked at me like she wasn't sure I was real. Ethan, she said, finally her voice soft. You came. I nodded once. You asked. She stepped aside. Inside the dining table was set clumsily. A store-bought rotisserie chicken sat in the center, surrounded by half-hearted sides. No candles, no warm lighting. Just a dim room that felt stripped of the effortless perfection it used to project. Rick sat at the table, already hunched over with a beer. His expression somewhere between forced casualness and discomfort. Lily was there too, scrolling her phone as usual, but she actually looked up when she saw me. Her face was paler than I remembered, maybe from spending more time in a cold house without the heat running. Hey, she muttered. It was the closest thing to a greeting I'd gotten from her in years. I took my seat quietly. For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence was heavy. Carolyn finally cleared her throat. We're glad you're here. It's been different without you. She paused, glancing toward the unremarkable spread on the table. I know what I said at Thanksgiving hurt you. I didn't mean it like that. I was tired. We were all under stress, and her voice trailed off, faltering. I kept my gaze steady, but I didn't speak. Rick jumped in next, his tone a mix of awkward and defensive. Look, your mum was overwhelmed. She said things she shouldn't have. You know how grief can twist people up. Nobody's perfect. Still, I said nothing. Lily sighed dramatically, as if she was the only one brave enough to name the elephant in the room. So, what now? You're just never going to talk to us again. Is this like your big revenge? 'Cause honestly, it's not funny anymore. The Wi-Fi, the heat, the bills. It's been hell. That made me smile. Not big, just enough for them to notice. Hell, I repeated softly. You mean like when you lose the one person holding everything together, and you finally feel what it's like to be without them? Carolyn's face tightened. Ethan, please. I know we didn't handle things right, but we're still family. Family, I echoed. My voice was calm, but it carried weight. You told me to leave, Mum, after I paid your mortgage, after I kept the lights on, after I put my own life on hold to take care of you after Dad died. You didn't ask. You told me, like I was some house guest, overstaying my welcome. Her eyes glistened, but she said nothing. I leaned back, feeling strangely at peace. I moved out. I built something for myself. I got promoted. I'm part of a new startup that just closed a major deal. I have my own place, my own life. I'm not stuck anymore. Rick shifted uncomfortably. That's good. Really. We're proud of you. But even he didn't sound convinced. I looked at each of them one by one. You know what I realized after I left? You didn't miss me. You missed the comfort I provided. You missed the easy life I gave you without ever asking for thanks. But you didn't value me. Carolyn finally spoke, her voice cracking. Ethan, I do value you. I didn't know how to say it then. I thought I was doing what was best for you. I thought maybe if I pushed you out, you'd find your own life. And I did. I said simply. Silence again. Lily looked down at her phone, suddenly very interested in the blank screen. I stood. I didn't come here to fight. I didn't come here to make you feel bad. I came to tell you this. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt anymore. I just don't need this anymore. I don't need a family that only knows how to take. Carolyn's lip trembled. So, you're leaving again? I nodded, this time for good, and with that I walked out. No yelling, no dramatic exit. Just quiet steps down a hallway that suddenly felt foreign. As I reached the door, I glanced back one last time. Carolyn was still standing by the table, frozen. Rick stared into his beer. Lily was staring at me, but for the first time her eyes weren't dismissive, they were hollow. When I closed the door behind me, I felt free. This wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming my life. And for the first time, I knew they finally understood what they'd lost. When I stepped out of that house for the last time, the air felt different. Crisp, light, almost like the world had been holding its breath and finally exhaled with me. I didn't look back as I walked to my car. I didn't need to. That house, once so full of noise and demands, was just another structure, now 4 walls trapping people who couldn't see past their own comfort. Inside, I knew what was happening. Carolyn would sit there in stunned silence, trying to replay every word I'd just said, maybe finally realizing they weren't just words. Rick would shrug, blaming her for pushing me too far, and Lily would scroll her phone aimlessly, unable to find the right post to mask the hollow feeling settling over her. They wouldn't talk about it right away. That was the thing about my family. They avoided truth like it was contagious, but the truth would linger like smoke after a fire. I imagined the house that night, cold, dimly lit, with a sad, store-bought chicken half-eaten on the table. No laughter, no warmth, no scapegoat to prop up their fragile balance. Meanwhile, my life didn't just keep moving, it blossomed. In the following weeks, the startup deal went through. My small stake tripled overnight. I upgraded to a bigger apartment with real sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. I started traveling for work, Seattle, Austin, even a weekend in New York, just because I wanted to. And through it all, I felt a peace I'd never known in that house. One night, I did get one more message from Carolyn. A long one. Ethan, I don't expect forgiveness. I know I made mistakes. I thought I was pushing you toward independence, but I was really pushing you away. I see that now. I'm sorry. Truly. If you ever want to come home, the door is open. But I understand if you don't. I read it once. Then again. And then I deleted it. Not out of anger. Not even bitterness. But because some doors once closed are meant to stay shut. They had finally realized what they lost. But by the time they did, I had already found myself. A year passed. Winter came again, wrapping the city in its soft, quiet stillness. From the window of my new apartment, I watched the snow blanket the streets, watched kids build lopsided snowmen on the sidewalk below. My life felt unrecognizable compared to the one I'd left behind. The startup deal had flourished beyond anyone's expectations. I wasn't rich, not yet, but I was secure. I had taken a solo trip to Portland in the fall-hiked trails I'd always dreamed about. I bought myself a used car that didn't rattle. My apartment was still modest, but it was warm, filled with only things that made me feel alive. There were no texts from Lily anymore, no missed calls from Rick. The only silence I heard was the kind that felt peaceful, not suffocating. Then one day, in early December, a letter arrived in my mailbox. It was handwritten, the envelope cream-colored and slightly wrinkled. I recognized the looping script instantly. Carolyn. Inside was a simple Christmas card, plain and impersonal on the front. But on the back, in her handwriting, there were just a few words. It's quiet here without you. I'm sorry for everything. If you ever want to come home, the door is open. But I understand if you don't. I held the card for a long time, not with anger, not with sadness, just stillness. Home. I realized in that moment that home was never a house or a family that didn't value me. Home was here, within me, in the life I'd built piece by piece after walking away. I set the card down on the windowsill, lit a candle, and made myself dinner. The snow fell quietly outside the city, glowing softly under the streetlights. And I smiled. Because some doors once closed don't need to be reopened. Sometimes the most powerful message you can give is your absence. And sometimes that absence is the freedom you always deserved.